good morning, Isaac.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, yeah. Doing well. Doing well.
All right. So you're leaving tomorrow.
Yeah.
What a journey.
What a journey. Indeed.
Journey.
Yeah.
So, I have a sore throat today. So it's a bit hard for me to talk, but I thought your story is so important and so powerful that I have to, document that for our followers
Yeah.
and hopefully help many people with your story. So that it's an effort for me to talk today, but we're going to do it anyway. Would you share what you feel comfortable sharing about what happened before, many years ago, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing, so people understand the magnitude of the event you went through and the years of recovery, and then we'll get to the medicine and how that helped you to deal with it.
Yeah.
So go ahead, start where you feel like.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, 8 years ago, while walking home on the pavement, I was struck by a drink driver. Yeah, and that changed my life quite a lot, significantly. I spent 12 days in a coma. I had a near-death experience. Lived through weeks in this time. This was a very deep journey I went on. Looking at death really, and
For how long?
12 days in this coma.
That's induced coma.
Induced coma, yeah, after the accident, the injuries were so severe, they put me in a coma. Lots of facial injuries, deep facial injuries that they felt I needed to be totally stable.
Yeah, no movement.
No
You
movement
have to
at
be
all.
completely
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
So how long? Like, okay, the 12 days you were in coma. Then what happened there? The recovery process. How long? What involved?
Yeah, then eventually involved me being transferred to a hospital nearby. Spent another 6 days there. Didn't sleep for 5 days. The body does strange things at that point, and went to some very special.
So from 12 days unconscious to 5 days no sleep.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the
turnaround.
Yeah.
I went to some very deep places. Very confusing. I had a brain injury, traumatic brain injury at this time. For my family as well. I couldn't speak. The injuries to my face were too severe. So they
For how long?
It took years to regain my speech properly, but mumbling, I had essentially no jaw, so the whole facial place was changed. Nerves were destroyed, so the mouth didn't work as it should. I was given a whiteboard to try and communicate on, and for my parents, it was, for the first 3 days, I was just writing M, the letter M, over and over again.
What does it mean then?
I don't know. Just I thought I was writing to people,
Okay.
and as far as my brain was able to do was just write the letter M consistently, lines.
So the communication was completely disrupted.
Yeah, well, they were looking at potentially a son that was going to need severe care, for the rest of his life. Brain damaged severely. And then came home, and it was 24-hour watch, and to be, bathed by my parents, and it was heavy. Very.
For how long all that was?
That was a few weeks, and then I was able to sort of slowly regain strength.
Just walking in the house.
Crutches. I had a broken knee, so crutches for 6 months, no weight on them. So, and then, recovery was physiotherapy on my knee, but then it was about finding doctors that could help me.
Reconstruct face.
Facial reconstruction. And, for 1 year, 18 months, me and my family, we had to travel around the country to find the right surgeon. Lots of surgeons just confused how I'm even alive.
So it was a continuous, medical care.
Yeah.
Continuous. So how many operations and for how long?
Yeah, it was continuous. It was 5 days a week appointments.
But how many actual surgeries and how many years?
And then it was over 7 years in the end. I had 16 surgeries.
Over 7 years.
Over 7 years. Bit by bit being put back together. Unable to eat anything for a year.
So just liquid
Diet for a
nutrients.
year. And very confusing. Lots of people prodding me, pulling me around, groups of surgeons kind of looking at me like a piece of meat, honestly, and how they're going to put me back together. And then throughout that journey, a lot happened, it's hard to piece together, but it was a highly confusing, traumatic time, and it wasn't just one event, it was a weekly trauma, for 7 years.
What weekly?
Just kind of medical gaslighting, people telling you what you feel is incorrect, they know how to do it.
So why would that happen? Like you're in a completely destroyed condition, like you're barely making there. So why would they gaslight you? Like what was the...
That ego's a lot. I saw a lot of sides of the medical industry that was uncomfortable, a lot of egos, a lot of dismissing of my views.
Why would they do that?
Because they knew better, they were the experts.
They knew better how you feel?
Yeah, and what was wrong and how to put me right. And oddly enough, my dad in the first year, they did a whole scan of my skull essentially and printed it, just physical, so they could see what was going on. And my dad was able to pinpoint some things. They thought, is
That doesn't look right.
that doesn't look right, and they're like, no, rubbish, you don't know anything.
Right,
We're
the
the
doctors.
experts.
And
And
the
ironically,
arrogance.
the arrogance. Ironically, I had to wait 4 years for that very first thing to be confirmed by another surgeon.
That was pointed out by your dad.
That was pointed out by
So
my
your
dad.
father knew better than the surgeon.
Exactly.
Right away by looking at the X-ray,
Yeah.
which took 4 years to confirm. I mean, this is ridiculous.
To actually begin to
To work
fix
on that.
Yeah, because they just ignored it and told us it was rubbish.
Scary
So,
world.
There was a lot of lost time. It felt like, and a lot of missing life. Right, 7 years watching the world go by. My life was appointments. Over 500, maybe 700 appointments.
That's
It was
over the... So basically
over the
every week, like a few times a week.
Yeah.
You just go on appointments,
Yeah.
doctors.
And people asking me to explain myself, what's wrong with me, like me to explain what the problem is, what I want fixing. It's like, I don't know.
You're the doctor.
I don't understand
Here
this.
is the X-ray.
This is
Here is the shattered skeleton, shattered body. What's wrong? You look at the
This
X-ray.
is for,
It's
I'm
for you
not
to figure out.
I'm not qualified to tell you that, and I was
You
put in positions where I had to kind of translate and pass from. I had many experts involved. They all had separate disciplines. One would say, "Well, what did that surgeon say?" Explain to me what he said is wrong, and all in a state of shock. I was just
And
supposed to and pain.
You were in pain through the whole time.
It eased. No, it eased. Probably 3 years I was in a lot of pain. I had a lot of stages I went through where they repaired me and spent 8 months in extreme pain. I have a good pain threshold, but some of these were 14 out of 10, and just living with that. I understood how some people that live with chronic pain, how that can start to affect you
Mentally.
mentally. You can just become very chewed
Life
up.
in pain. In pain.
Yeah, it's not a good place. So, yeah, it took a lot from me physically, mentally, spiritually. And yeah, I had a whole medical and a whole legal team. You know, my life was kind of tethered to somebody else's
Opinions.
fate. My fate was in somebody else's hands. There's nothing I could do to work to help fix myself. You know, the physio on the leg is something I'm in control of, and I did the work. But this was all waiting on others to get to a point. To decide. And then it took me 2.5 years to find the right surgeon who was confident. And then COVID hit 2 weeks before my surgery. I'd had a few surgeries to sort of put me right, because at the time I couldn't eat, so I had some surgeries that freed things up that allowed me to start being able to function a bit better.
And then COVID hit.
And then COVID
shut
hit,
down.
and the story was just, we'll let you know when it's over. So I went on for 18 months, and yeah, I found myself on my knees a few times, you know, almost broke a lot of times.
During the COVID, which was absolutely horrifying for normal, healthy people.
Yeah.
You know, plus, so that was plus. You're already recovering, you're already going through absolute hell, plus COVID comes.
Yeah.
That's like a total devastation.
Yeah, devastated me. Broke me.
Total.
Broke me. It was ironic though, I was essentially in lockdown before that, you know, it felt like
It
felt like everyone is kind of joining me where I'm at. You know,
the whole world,
the whole world
is
was like, this is what
this is your reality
it's
for
been
years.
stopped for, yeah, my life was on hold for like 2.5 years. And I had a tough time coming back out of that, you know. Surgery started up again, and I was, you know, a bit shattered by that, but I was glad to be moving. But a lot of disappointments along the way, a lot of timelines that were told, yeah, we'll get you fixed in 6 months, which turned into 3.5 years more. So it was very confusing, wasn't able to commit to anything in life. Working was pretty off the cards because surgery, all the preparation for surgery, recovery, it was probably 2-3 months before we start preparing for the next one.
So it's basically from surgery, life from surgery to surgery.
Yeah.
There's a surgery, which is what, every 6 months?
Yeah.
Then 6 months is like a recovery.
Yeah.
And then another surgery. So that's the process for 7 years.
Yeah.
Basically, hospitals.
Yeah.
And surgeries.
Yeah.
That's it. And recovery at home.
And it began to, you know, become traumatic in itself just entering these places. You know, my life became waiting rooms and people poking and pulling and pain, you know, it was painful. And yeah, yeah, got up a lot of times when I had windows to get up and move on. I took them, you know, and I did some really nice things, traveled to Barcelona.
That's already years after.
Years after, that was about 5 years after. When I had windows, I tried to move on, you know, and I
just to get some
always
air.
Always tried to remain positive, but yeah, it began to wear on me a bit, and the ability to get back up became a little bit harder every time. You know, each time was okay. Find the strength to start again, and then a lot of moments of the rug being pulled out from underneath me. You know, okay, I've got some stability. I'm moving forward, and yeah, I lost a lot of friends. I couldn't relate to anyone. You know, my life was just on a totally different trajectory. But it taught me a lot. I before was not particularly good at being alone, and I had to learn to be alone, and it was nice not to even say lonely. It was just began to appreciate my own time with myself, and
It's powerful.
yeah, and learn to be with myself more. And
Have you had the hope that you will recover?
I didn't know, you know. It was always set out to be, okay, it's going to be a year or two, you know. And then over the years it became
The
harder and
continuous
harder.
process.
Yeah, this continuous
It's like another
carrot
year,
was
another year,
further
another
down
year.
the line, you know. Not yet, not yet. So I started to lose a bit of hope, I think. COVID was the main thing. I started to wonder if I'd ever be right, because it was very functional. It wasn't just aesthetic. It was, you know, I wasn't able to,
Function.
yeah, eat properly in public, and you know, I was very afraid of going out to public at certain points. You know, I had
So
to be
hiding.
very. I was very. It was very clear what was wrong with me. You know, some things get etched into you a little bit. You know, kids tugging on their mum, scared, looking at this person, like, oh my god, this person's scary, and people talking, and oh my god, this guy, you know, that.
So you kind of naturally wanted to be avoiding people.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was a quiet period, but I did a lot in that time. You know, I made sure I never just wasted away at home. You know, doing nothing. I learned a lot, did a lot of research, gardening, reading. Always made a point to make sure I'm getting out of bed by 8 a.m. You know, living properly, not just
In the bed all day.
collapsing into that. But yeah, it added up with, you know, some diagnosis of severe depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia. You know, people say you look fine, but you see the image of yourself at the start, and you don't quite see all the progress. You know, that kind of
Stuck.
you get stuck on this label. And yeah, and spending enough time in that, with essentially your life and your identity being around this is your life for 7 years, began to identify with it. In the last few years I've made a real effort to work on getting better, you know, and improving myself. Meditation, yoga, you know, things that were helping, but they were never getting at the core of what I needed to
Superficial
heal. Yeah, they were a nice thing, but the core was never healed, you know, the wound. So it took me to some ayahuasca centers in the end, when I finally had some leash loosened from all of this, less appointments, you know, maybe once a week. But always having to remain close to the surgeons, because of the complexity of this meant they were the only people that knew how to, if there were issues that came up, it was not a trip to a regular doctor, you know. And it actually happened last year. I was in Peru, and I had a medical flare-up. I was due to be here another 3 weeks, but I had to get on the first flight home, and, you know,
Some medical emergency.
yeah, get straight to the doctor, and, you know, it's it's quite tough when you're so visually seen, you know, it's not hidden, it's very aware for everyone, all the airport staff, you know, they see what's happening, and it's tough having to just be out there in the world, feeling a little bit broken, a little bit wounded. But yeah, it all led me here. It was all informed the way I wanted to live, and I had a lot of time to think about how I'd live when I'm better, you know. A lot of time to plan, learn, prepare, and
Did you ever think why that happened to you, in the spiritual sense? A part of obvious accident and a drunk driver,
yeah.
which wasn't your fault completely. You were walking in the sidewalk where everybody walks. Did you ever think what was behind that, like in a spiritual sense? Why that happened?
Yeah. I thought I mean, to backtrack a bit, as a young kid, I was a very happy-go-lucky kid, very sociable, confident kid, kind, and but I had some wounds that I picked up when I was very young in childhood. That kind of informed the way I saw myself, the self-worth, shame, and throughout my teenage years I sort of discovered drugs and parties, festivals, and this was some kind of medicine for me for a short period, and I pushed it a little bit, and inevitably, if you don't look at the stuff, it will find its way out, and it had a sort of shadow, it started to express itself in me, in the darkness of how I viewed myself, and pushing very close to really getting an addiction, but I was on the edge, and I was not living well, not living with much self-respect and self-worth.
Of self-care.
Self-care. I got myself into some real scrapes through life before the accident, but again I tried to push on through, and inevitably it will come back to bite you. And then leading up to the accident the month before, I was in a depressed state, quite a negative view of myself and how much value I had, and there was a sort of unconscious sense of seeking punishment for that, just so unconscious that.
So lacking respect for your own life.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It's a kind of universe, God sort of, it felt like there was a stop that needed to be put to that. And unfortunately it was brutal and shocking, but necessary to slow down, and you've got to look at this stuff. You've got to deal with yourself. You've got to deal with this stuff. You cannot just keep pushing on. And I was aware of it. Way before that time, I'd taken myself away to do yoga retreats 11 years ago. I was aware I needed to look at some stuff. I just didn't know.
It was mindless, reckless living.
Yeah.
That's how would you describe the past before, prior to the accident?
Yeah, with a core of, quite dark stuff, malevolently thinking whatever happens to me happens, no regard for my safety, and, a big awakening. But
sometimes that's what it takes to wake people up from the self-destructive behavior.
Yeah. What a life can turn out how it can turn out in if you have unconscious stuff you're running from, or
just mindless, reckless living.
Yeah.
I can relate to it too. My past was similar to that. I didn't have that kind of physical suffering through accidents. To me it was different, but nevertheless it was a bumpy road all the way to the medicine work. Until I found the medicine, then things started to shift.
Yeah.
So, but I can relate to your story very much emotionally. I understand the journey prior, not the after, of course. That's very specific, but the prior definitely I can understand that. So that led you to the medicine work.
Yeah. I began to explore sort of mushrooms myself at home. It was the one thing. I had therapists and things, but it was the one thing that allowed me to kind of really look at it and start to make steps towards understanding, and healing and releasing grief and things I had run from, and bit by bit I found more, dug deeper into how I get better, and it always seemed to lead me to medicine work, you know. This was the, you know, and I'd pushed a lot to try and, every time I found my feet, I put down some bricks, it felt, and then I'd constantly realise these are not planted right, you know, and the wall would fall, you know, and okay, I need to go back, look at this more, and it's so to points for people from the outside, it's like you're just dwelling and move on, you know, you're dwelling on your stuff, but I always knew that if I don't fully get to the core of this and fix that, I'm just going to keep
Nothing will change.
Yeah,
You got to keep repeating that.
Yeah.
In different ways.
Yeah.
You know.
And, so yeah, it felt like from the very first ceremony here. I mean, you saw me. I was in bliss, but it was like such a relief to realize. Okay, this is from the first ceremony. I felt like, wow, I could finally kind of put this down, this kind of ongoing confusion, and start to look at things. You know, I was able to see some clarity in my life about how important life is, you know, as well. How precious it is. You know, I had a real experience with divine presence during my second ceremony, I think, and yeah, allowed me to release things that were so deeply in me that didn't really need words. Just standing by the river, yeah, had a real effect on me. Clearing real stuck stuff that wasn't able to be processed before with other methods.
You had therapy during these years too.
Yeah, after a few years, yeah. The last sort of 3-4 years, but I had a long time without it before any real protocols put in place. So a lot of it was by myself, you know. I did a lot of work that helped myself. But yeah, finding this place helped me find aspects of myself that were trapped and buried under shame, you know. Lots of good parts of my life, good parts of myself, you know, that were hidden beneath pain, grief, you know, that were stuck until I could open up and feel love, my heart opening. It closed up quite a lot, you know, and was all self-directed punishment. And this finally made me feel that it doesn't have to be that way, and I could begin to heal and put this behind me.
That started to happen here.
Started to happen, you know. After the first week, it was more about cleansing, you know. It was really about
letting go,
things coming up, ancestral stuff, you know, about my family, and maybe realizing that some stuff I carried in this life wasn't actually mine. For as long as I can remember, there were some things that I now, as I've gotten older, I see in my grandparents, and similarities, you know, of how a life can look without looking at your pain, you know. And having compassion for them, but realizing it's time to fix this myself. It has to end with me, you know. Can't keep going on.
The vicious cycle has to be stopped.
Yeah.
By someone.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of things coming up, which was like me repeating my story, you know. After 8 years, I kind of became identified with it. Very tough to let go of it somehow.
The suffering and pain became your identity.
Yeah.
It's like letting this go is almost like letting yourself go.
Yeah, it's like
It's like
dying.
going into emptiness.
Yeah, it's like, who am I outside
Without
of this?
that.
Yeah, I don't know anymore.
That's a powerful point.
Yeah.
That's a powerful point. Without deviation, I just want to mention that I see that in the work here, a number of people that comes with different trauma, and I see how much they have been identified with it, and they just don't want to let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, it sounds like unbelievable, because why would you want to keep suffering? It's like, of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. Everybody want to be happy. But that's in theory. In practice, it's not like that. People identified with their suffering, and it just becomes them.
Yeah.
So letting this go is like
It's like a
disappearing.
death. It's a
Yeah,
death,
it's like
you know?
dying.
Yeah.
So that's the fear, is to let go.
Mm.
That's many times, I've seen that, and we're trying to work gently through it, of letting go, not through causing another trauma,
Mm.
but through love, through understanding, through forgiveness. The idea is to help people to let go of that suffering, of that pain of the past, meanwhile finding that new identity
Yeah.
in beauty, in love, in self-respect, so you kind of constructing a new identity as you let go of the old one.
Yeah.
So you don't have the vacuum in between, the confusing vacuum
Mm.
in between. You're no longer that, but you're not yet something new.
Yeah.
So this transition I see a lot here, that it's very smooth. In Huachuma, it's very smooth. It gives you that new identity, new self, a new sense of self, new sense of living,
Yeah.
while the old pain just slowly fading away.
Mm.
Is that something you experienced during these 3 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I had an experience one day where I had found myself in this bit of a loop, of kind of rehashing my story, and I, funnily enough, I picked up the stone during that day, and I was sort of called to pick it up, and I thought, maybe this is a stone I keep, but it felt premature. And somehow I forgot that stone that day, and I thought, man, that was not good. And then, so the next day I thought, oh, maybe I'll keep an eye out for this stone. I'm not going to spend all ceremony panicking over it, but if I see it, I'll see it. And as I was walking around, keeping an eye, I suddenly felt an intense wave of like nausea, and yeah, it led me to purging, and we hadn't been there for long that day. And ironically, as I looked down at it, there was the stone. It felt quite symbolic that was kind of my story that I had to kind of
Let go.
of, and
Just
I began to do
cleanse out of your mind, out of your heart, out of your body,
Yeah,
out of your soul.
yeah, it was very deep, and I felt great afterwards. It was very necessary, and ever since then it's lessened. Dropping the story, dropping the loop I'm in. Of identifying, and there were still some tugs. I'm still on that journey of letting go, but I let go a lot. I lost, slowly distancing myself from that. That story.
So do you
That's
feel
been
like the
huge.
distance has grown between the new you and that story
Absolutely.
during that 3 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had some real revelations of how I want to live, how I go forward, how I move forward in life, and real excitement for a new chapter in my life, actually, which for a long time I wasn't sure of.
That's a big word,
Yeah,
considering 8 years of severe depression and struggling and despair. To feel excited about life, that's a huge step forward.
yeah, it was huge. I've found myself envisioning deeply, knowing exactly how it looks, how the life looks, and feeling very clear on that, and ready, and a new strength in me to forge towards that way I want to live. It's been hugely impactful. Yeah, hugely. Leaving it behind, and I'm going to continue the work. Continue the work. There's still some bits that need dropping.
It's okay, guys. Pass if you need. It's fine. No worries. Just pass. Normal. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful from the uncomfortable stuff I was able to look at with a fresh perspective, and move through stuff with more understanding, more awareness. Yeah, more awareness of when I may be stepping into that, oh, you're going there, and I can put a stop to that much sooner. Now I feel it, and pure clarity on how I want to move forward, and I feel one day, I was have to help people, going forward. I don't know, my path doesn't,
It doesn't end with your recovery.
Yeah, and I don't go back to just, having a business or getting a job, it's not to make it too overly important or self-important, but I feel like I didn't go through this just to jump back to life as normal. It's a different path now. Not sure how that looks yet, but
well, one direction it could take, it's helping others through your story. It's utilizing your past, transforming that into medicine, helping people to recover who had similar accident. There are many people who unfortunately go through that. We hear this all the time on the news, everywhere. It's a big global problem. So it could be helping those people, using your story, how absolutely horrifying that was for 8 years, and helping them to recover and get back to life.
And one thing I realized, I was not ready to do any of this stuff, to come out to prove.
Because you're still healing.
But something inside me, and for anyone that is struggling, don't push unhealthily or, unwisely, but I knew it had to take a bit of discomfort to move forward, and it's going to take a bit of a push. Getting on a plane, traveling further than you think, nervous system fried, anxiety, fears. Should do it. Probably don't take it, not to take my road, because it was very bumpy, but also you have to be prepared to do that to get better, to a little bit of discomfort, last push, to find
greater healing.
Yeah.
To find a relief, to find freedom.
Yeah. You can't remain where you are and in your
hoping
pit.
the time will just take care of it.
Yeah. It does require some work.
Of course, because the time does help, but what good time does if you just keep looping in the same story? It just will be a longer loop.
Yeah.
It's just
and
suffering for longer.
Yeah, deeper into your troubles, and you don't fix it that way. But it takes
to get out of it.
Yeah.
To have a fresh perspective, higher perspective, and objective view of what happened.
Yeah.
Which medicine provides. It allows you that, higher perspective and a safety zone between you and the pain, where you can look at the pain but without being torn apart
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So you can do the work, you can understand, you can release, you can forgive and move on.
Yeah. And this is a very safe medicine for that. Yeah. And yeah, it's hugely beneficial on the nervous system. It's helped me so much. Yeah, and it's what I needed. I found a medicine that really is going to help me get through,
To recover.
to come out of the other side. And I already am.
With a greater vision too.
Yeah.
Recovery and healing, it's absolutely necessary. But this is the first part.
Yeah.
It doesn't end there.
Mm.
Then when you heal, then the whole path, you discover the whole new path, the whole new purpose in life.
Yeah.
And that's the power of this.
Yeah, you can't dream when you're in that state, when you need to clear some stuff.
You are in pain, you need to take care of the pain.
Mm.
You can't do anything else.
Mm.
So healing comes first, vision follows,
Yeah.
and then the whole life unfolds accordingly. That's the power of this work. That's why I'm trying to explain to people that the healing is not all you want.
Mm.
It might seem like it's all you want, because when you're suffering, all you want is just healing.
Yeah.
And then, that's it, I'm good now, go back to my normal life. But actually, in most cases, you can do that. What I have seen here is that whatever is the sickness or, anything that brought you to the medicine that was looked at as a bad thing, actually become, it's a good thing later,
Yeah.
which sounds unreasonable, how the sickness or your pain, how that can be a good thing.
Mm.
It's not a good thing. It's a cause of pain. But actually, many people came to this work through different kind of sufferings, through different pains, and that led them not only to healing, but to a complete new outlook of their lives, and many just rediscovered a new path in life through that. So the pain led them to the work, and then by transforming and healing, they just found themselves in a spiritual sense and found purpose and greater happiness that they never had even imagined. So while you're there, it's hard to imagine that one day you will be grateful for your troubled past.
Yeah.
It's very hard to imagine. It's almost like a joke.
Yeah.
Like, there is no way you can be happy that happened to you. And yet, during the process, I've heard many times people said, like, I'm so happy that happened to me. So I came to the medicine, and it opens my vision, and it opens the whole new path for me in life. I would never do it otherwise. People told me that. I would never even look into the plant medicine. I was doing my things, and that was so far, and that's not even something I was considering, And yet, they were led to it through, different troubles, sicknesses, different kind of pains, So you can look at that too, like that, It just can be one of the way to smooth that pain, and it's not all bad,
Yeah.
Of course, you had your big portion of suffering, but you can also kind of help by looking at it as an opening in your life, as something that led you to the medicine, and now it will unfold in time, and see how much greatness can be coming through this, living it through authentic, purposeful life, meaningful life, through your pain.
Yeah.
What else would you like to share with people?
Said a lot, but yeah, just I think it's hugely important work, for anyone considering moving forward with life, if that's having children, or you have to look at this stuff. You can't run from it the whole time, or else it just sort of perpetuates this pain, and it's something I've come to realise that it's necessary work to live a life fully, and you must do it. I've met people here that have made huge life changes on how they want to live, having children, marriage. I think it's a very, very important to gain clarity on why you're doing the things you're doing, because I don't think enough of society does that, especially the generations above us. Just had kids before they didn't know why, they just had them. My grandmother.
Mindless.
Yeah, my grandmother was wanting to get a dog, and she's been thinking for 3 years, and she said to my mum, unfortunately, I thought more about this dog than I did about having kids. And that's, you perpetuate a lot of pain. Yeah, a lot of pain to generations.
Well, the medicine can certainly help you to clear up your vision and understand priorities. What's more important for you in life, and pursue it. The significance of your life becoming very clear through this work. And I can relate to your story through mine, just for reference, what you mentioned in the beginning, that you begin to understand the importance and significance of your life after the accident. And that's what happened to me in Mexico when I had my shamanic initiation through death in the peyote ceremony, and 3 days of hell that followed that, between life and death, being between life and death. And that's one of the lessons I came with through this experience, is a very similar understanding of how important and significant life is, and how precious and sacred. And seems like you had a similar understanding through your experience. So it just shows the objectivity of this understanding that can be found through different paths. And of course, it is better to find it through plant medicine than through car accident and 8 years of recovery. So, but regardless, doesn't matter how you came to this, as long as you came to this and now you can utilize this in your life and living based on this appreciation for life. Anything else you would like to say about the medicine and people who are suffering from severe PTSD? What would you want to tell them?
Yeah, this is a very safe place to do that, and a safe medicine. I've said it before, but there's nothing quite like being able to get safely into these shocking moments in your life with a sort of softer approach that is very direct and clear, but
loving,
not judgmental, and allows you to build again. It gives you love to move through your pain cleanly, and effectively. There's a lot of medicines out there that can help, but also can potentially re-trigger things. I know that myself, and the nervous system, when it's so fragile, it needs care, and this medicine works with care
and kindness
and very, very deep, profound healing. That's probably all I have to say for that, but it's a totally useful medicine.
Okay, well, I think we might wrap it up here. Thank you very much for taking time doing this interview, for opening up. I understand how difficult that is, considering what you went through, and I'm certain that this will help many people to get inspired that healing is possible,
Yeah.
and to seek for healing, to seek beyond their normal environment where they are, to look farther and deeper, and utilize plant medicine that is such a great help that we have, and get well.
Yeah. There is a road back. That is true. Even no matter how far gone you think you are, there's a road back.
That's powerful statement for closing. Okay, thank you, and really wish you all the best from here,
Yeah.
and we are in touch.
Thank you.
You always welcome back
Yeah, I will be back.
for another round of healing,
Yeah.
because it's layers.